Right, the final task. And I actually think this is a rather fair task. And I think let's look at the question. I think there are some important things to pick up on. When we deal with um, indexation, or when we deal with shares, we talk about share pools, right? Share pools. So up till, well, it'll be anything before 2017, we will group shares of a certain company. We'll mix them up all together, in effect. So really what we're sort of saying here is that, listen, in March, you've bought 2,500 of these shares at 50 quid, and we'll have a figure, right? So 2,500, for example, times 50, and that gives you 125,000. Now, the first point to make is that whenever we have bonus issues, these are not, there's no money coming in. So we argue there's no real operation taking place. We just have an increase in the number of shares, but there's no additional money coming in. So you could have worked that out at an additional 500. So you now have, almost on this date, you have 3,000 shares, which are still indexed at that 1,200, 500. We will carry out whatever indexation is from this date, but the assumption is you're just given these shares, right, of 500 shares, because it's 1 for 5. So 2,500 divided by 5. Now you do have an event. So bonus issues are not operative events. They're not events in themselves to create indexation. But in November, when we have the rights issue, we will first of all index this up till that date in November. So we will sort of say, well, let's look at the relation. Look at the situation between um, March 2010 and November, and it's 0.113. So we will now work out what that inflation is, if you like, times 0.113, and bring that up, as well as respect the fact that there has been this rights issue, which is 1 for 2. So we now have 1,500 new shares that have come in at £45 each. So we have these two events sort of taking place on this date, right? So now we have a total, if you like, of 4,500 shares, if you like, at this new amount. That's the first thing. And then the final thing we want to do with all of these is to bring all of these up till the final indexation date, so we can give that final inflation as at the December 2017, right? So you can see we're working. So let me just take you here, and we can sort of see, like, I can outline this out again. So we started off with this purchase of 2,500. Those are the unindexed values and the indexed values. Like I said, nothing happens with the bonus issue. We just have these 500 shares. There is no value at all that's brought to the business, but we have increased the number of shares. In a way, we've almost diluted the valuation of this such scenario. So we have 125 and 125 just as they were. But then you see what I said there. We now create the indexation on the day of the rights issue. So we now have that indexation on top of this 125, as well as what value came in as a result of the rights issue, right? And then, so we now have, that's the rights issue here, as in on the day itself. And then we now have a total of 4,500 shares with the unindexed value, of course, as well as now adding all these three items together to get this. And then I do a final big indexation from on those 4,500 shares from here all the way till December, multiplying this 206,625 times, well, I find the 0.132, put that in, and I now have my full indexation, and it freezes in December. So this is where we're trying to get to ultimately, right? This is where we're trying to get to right here. 1 second, let me just, we're trying to get to here. This is what we're trying to do. So now I have 4,500 shares, but the question says that you sell 2,750, right? The question says here that you sold 2,750. So if you look up here, if I just clean this up a bit, if you look up here on the 10th of October, which was literally 8 days, so this 10th of October won't be in the pool, right? It's within 30 days. So we look same day, then we look back 30 days, and then we look at the pool. So it's within 30 days. So I can already see the cost of 1,500. So I need the cost. I'm like, okay, what is the cost? I've got the cost of 1,500 shares. So I'm looking for the cost of another 1,250 shares, because that's how I'm going to get the cost of 2,750 shares, right? I know what the sale is of those 2,750 shares. I know what the sale is of those 2,750 shares. I know it at 85 pounds each, but now I need to know what the cost is of those 2,750 shares. So I'm going to take the 1,500 first, then I'm going to take the balance of that from that pool that I've been working on so far. So as far as the 1,500, that's the cost at 75 pounds. And then the pool of 1,250 is what I'm going to sort of work on here. So you can see that's what they're doing here. They're sort of saying, well, those 1,250 that you need, just not pro rata them, just sort of take them as a proportion. If you have 4,500, well, 1,250 of those would be, of course, well, 1,250 over 4,500 times, I'll just multiply those by the 192,500 and do exactly the same thing again. 1,250, 4 times 500 times 233,900 to get their own individual cost. So now I know what the cost is of these 1,250 shares. And that's what you see over here. It's sort of saying, listen, you're going to sell 2,750 shares at at 85 pounds each. That's what this is. Then remember, like I showed you, you had these 1,500 shares here. Oops, sorry. These 1,500 shares at 75 pounds each, and that's what you're seeing over here. These are the 1,500 shares at 75 pounds each. That's what's happening here. And then that's the pool, the other 1,250 shares, and there's the full cost of 64,792. You could have found the index bit, which is the difference between these two, but really it's not. You don't have to if you have this figure here. So now you have your total cost. That's your total cost over there, isn't it? From the 1,500 shares and the 1,250 shares together, making up your 2,750. And that's the sale of the 2,750. And then you have your gain, right? Your gain. So I think the trick here, or the key thing to be very awake to, is the fact that bonus issues do not cause a movement, any indexation. We wait until we see another event take place. So typically, where we have real money coming in, which is what we saw with the rights issue. Cool, great stuff. And that is task 11.